He's a special little boy and he has very unique needs. And there are no dyslexia schools in West Virginia. All of our research showed that most of the dyslexia schools were down in Florida or up in the Northeast. That as soon as I called and said, hey, my son's been diagnosed with dyslexia, but he also has high functioning autism, several of them immediately said no, that they will not take children with an autism diagnosis. Out of 15 schools, we cannot get him into a single one. With his reading being so far behind, Nationwide Children's Hospital recommended that we go to a dyslexia school. They really wanted us to focus on the dyslexia. They felt that the dyslexia was what was holding him back the most and interfering with his ability to complete any schoolwork. The autism was interfering with his social life and his ability to make friends, but it wasn't really interfering with his life the way that dyslexia is. And unfortunately for us, there are not a lot of dyslexia schools. However, we live in West Virginia, and there are no dyslexia schools in West Virginia. There are not even any real dyslexic services. The closest thing we have is a potential tutor that's about an hour and a half away from us. So we started looking up dyslexia schools, which was really overwhelming because there's no way to Google the best dyslexia school for your child. There's no way to find a list on the internet saying, here's a top-rated dyslexia school. We didn't know what to look for in a dyslexia school. How do we tell whether this dyslexia school is going to be better for Jesse than this other dyslexia school? So it was very stressful for the first month to try to come up with a list or some sort of system to rate dyslexia schools. Since we knew we had to relocate and there weren't any dyslexia schools around us, we were looking from Ohio to Virginia, all the way up to Massachusetts and Connecticut, all the way down to Florida, and all the way out to Kansas. So while we were looking at the dyslexia schools, we discovered that the Orton-Gillingham program might be a good fit for Jesse. And if you don't know anything about dyslexia, they have different programs that the school uses to help teach the children how to read. The Orton-Gillingham, when we watched YouTube videos, seemed to make the most sense that Jesse would be responsive to. So there were only 15 Orton-Gillingham certified schools in the United States and Canada. So we started by eliminating the ones that only went to 8th grade. Since Jesse is currently in 6th grade for the 2019 academic year, we knew just a couple years of dyslexia school was not going to be enough for him, and we would definitely have to go into at least high school. So once we crossed those off of our list, I started calling all the dyslexia schools that were certified with the Orton-Gillingham educational program. From that list, we started narrowing them down to ones that as soon as I called and said, hey, my son's been diagnosed with dyslexia, but he also has high functioning autism, several of them immediately said no, that they will not take children with an autism diagnosis. For most kids with dyslexia do not have autism. That is very uncommon for them to have this. So for Jesse to have both the autism and the dyslexia diagnosis, most of those kids will focus on the autism portion of it, and that's what's holding them back, while Jesse's the other way around, and the dyslexia is what's holding him back and that we want to focus on. Our goal was to get him into a dyslexia school where we could focus on the dyslexia 5 days a week, possibly even additional tutoring outside of the school for the dyslexia, and then get him into a play group and an individual therapist to help him learn to cope socially with the autism aspect of it. Normally in the dyslexia school system, they will have you apply, and then they will do shadow days, 1 to 2 or 3 days, to make sure that that kid's gonna be a right fit. So Jesse would go to that school, he would go through the school day like all the other children. They can learn whether or not that school is gonna be able to help Jesse without throwing him in there for a year and then having to take him out, which I think is a great idea. We have 2 that had agreed to shadow days, and the 2 that had told us that they would do shadow days. We researched the area, we researched the environment. We wanted to make sure it wasn't just a good fit for Jessie, it was a good fit for the rest of our family too. We researched jobs, housing, the public school system, because one, Jessie would hopefully transition into the public school system before 12th grade, and then two, we also have a 3-year-old little girl who's going to be going to school soon. We want to make sure wherever we locate to is going to be a good fit for everyone. But unfortunately, even though we had the shadow days scheduled, once it came down to the shadow days, I was contacted by both the schools and told that Jessie would not be a good fit for their school without ever meeting Jessie. There are no dyslexia schools that are certified in Orton-Gillingham that are willing to accept Jessie. Out of 15 schools, we cannot get him into a single one. After going through the list of 15 schools and not finding one that will take Jessie, we had to restart again. So we had to come up with a new list of schools to consider sending Jessie to. And out of the stress that we went through trying to find the first list, to make another list was quite exhausting. It was really hard to try to come up with any other schools that would be a good fit for him. So after doing a lot of research again and spending hours and hours on the internet trying to find something for him, something that would fit him, something that would benefit him, that will be a positive influence on him, we want to make sure that he gets all the resources that he needs. We're very nervous about it. We're very nervous about finding the right school for Jessie. And it's a scary time for us. We've been in limbo for 4 months now, knowing that we have to move and we don't know where we're moving to or when we're moving. And it's very confusing when people are asking you, hey, can you do this next month, or can you commit to this in 2 months? And we have to say, I'd like to do that, but I can't commit to anything a month or two in advance because I don't know if I'm even going to be in this state in a month or two. We received several questions from family wanting to know why we didn't stick him in the public school system. Our concern when we talked to the psychiatrist about putting Jessie in a public school system was a couple different things. One is he would pick up on bad habits he didn't have. Jesse's a very sweet kid. He doesn't have behavior issues, and we certainly didn't want him picking that up. And two is he tested with an above average IQ, so he's really smart. And unfortunately, if we stick him in a classroom or a classroom environment where he's going to be put in with students with a lower IQ level, he is going to believe that that's because he has a lower IQ level. And with him being so vulnerable to believing that, we can't take that chance. Jesse's a very sweet kid, and he's smart and he's funny. He picks up on a lot. He's very emotional. Normally when people meet Jesse, that's what they say about him, is that he's a very sweet kid. He's probably a little immature for his age, and he's very emotional. I've always had a favorite quote from Albert Einstein that says, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life believing it is stupid. And I can't think of anything else that applies to Jesse more than that. It's really hard to try to fit into a world that isn't designed for you. And we want to create a world that is designed for Jesse, and an environment for him to succeed in and thrive in. And we want to take you guys along with us. We really want to try to meet other people that are in similar boats, or other families with children with autism or dyslexia, or both if they're out there. I'm sure they've got to be somewhere. I know Jessie isn't the only one. So thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot to us to have our family and friends and our community support